It's a good thing to have.
Yeah, I think we're gonna try to budget one this summer.
What have you been doing, Jim?
I've been just practicing law, just laying low, practicing law.
Dodging darts, right?
Now I've got some new windows in my house. I got some hurricane impact windows. I feel so secure right now.
So we're just trying to get back. We're still not back in ours party. We were hopeful to be in for Christmas. Now we're hoping to be in for Easter. It's amazing.
Unbelievable.
I took Linda back 53 years, Arlen, and put her in a one-bedroom apartment like when we first got married, and I want you to know it sucks.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's unbelievable.
I know Betsy and Michelle wouldn't agree with this, but these ladies at 50 years have a lot more clothes than they did 50 years ago.
True.
Better watch it. The other arm's gonna be in a sling here in a little bit.
Well, I'm in, you don't believe how much debt the last week now I'm in paying to her.
All right, whenever y'all are ready.
14
Brad, you
months.
wanna go ahead and kick us off?
All right, so Mr. Zahn, you were the chairman of for the last commission. If you'd like to go ahead and get started, open
Okay,
the meeting.
well, we'll call to order, and I think the record would reflect that all 5 appointed members are here, and welcome everybody, and of course, City Manager Dave Parsons here, and under the law as it changed in the last year or so, we're required to have public or citizen comments, and we have a provision for that in the agenda. And it's not in-person comment, but I don't think we've had anybody sign up, so.
No, sir.
So then, the next item then would be to discuss and take action to elect the chairman and the vice chairman of the Charter Review Commission.
Ready for action?
I'm sorry.
Are you ready for action, or are we
Yes.
thinking it over first? Okay.
Yeah, that's our first item, is to take action to elect the chairman and the vice chairman.
I would like to nominate Charlie Zahn for chairman of this committee.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, then I entertain a motion to elect myself as chairman by acclamation. All right, how about a vice chairman?
I,
All right,
I'd like to nominate Betsy as vice chairman.
And I'll second that one.
I decline.
I'd like to nominate Jim as vice chairman.
And I'll second that as well, since how y'all have the more experience on the board.
we've been here a long time.
94?
Do you want it, Jim? I mean,
Sure, no problem. No problem.
I started in '86.
Yeah, right.
Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to cease nominations and elect Jim as vice chairman by acclamation.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign, and the motion carries. We've got minutes, I guess, from the last meeting we had, which was on January the 18th, 2016. And we need to approve those, so we can sign them and Fran can put them in the appropriate spot.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of 2016 as submitted. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign, the motion carries.
Abstain.
The next item is kind of formulate an action plan, and what we've done in the past, probably for the last, I know I've served with Betsy and Jim 3, 4, 5 times. in the last 20 years. But we've had the city staff, which would include Mike Morris and the city manager, come in and make recommendations to us for changes, proposed changes to the charter. A lot of what Mike will do will be to bring current law in to update the charter. And then what we've done in the past, and I want to ask Dave about something about this in just a minute, we've invited present council members and then past council members, and then we've invited the public to come in and make statements on requested changes. And then once we get a draft, we publish that and give the public one more chance to come in and make comment on that before we submit it to the voters. Dave and I were talking about that today. The next election's in May. Did you talk to Mike to see if we could make that?
No, it's too late for May.
Okay.
So if you guys will notice, if you read through here, when you guys in 2016, you did not push forward any changes that required to go to the vote. I think it was all done under, reformatting was not a requirement to go to the voters. I think Irma vetted all this. It was reformatting, grammatical errors, deleting provisions not in compliance with state law, and adding a new article that was a requirement. So she worked with the state on developing all those changes and edits that did not require it to go to the voters. So in 2016, it was approved at council through an ordinance. So you guys did succeed in going through a good revision that at least got, so we're up to date as far as 2016 is concerned. So like Charlie said, if we want to, we're going to start the process all over again. And you have two paths. Either you do a very minor amendments that are under the state law where they're just grammatical errors, reformatting, stuff like that, or you go through, if you have any kind of change in verbiage or any additions like that, then it goes to the citizens for a vote. So and it can go to either a May election or it could go to a November election. It has the opportunity to go to either one of those. So depending on the level of changes that you guys and staff and everyone comes up with, that'll be the path forward on, are we going to target, do we have substantial changes that we need to, get it done by late August, to where in late August we would call, that's kind of our deadline, that August meeting, to call for a November election for the city. So you would have to pretty much have it done by that date.
In consonance with that, in preparing for today's meeting, I took the liberty of taking Irma Parker's changes. If any of you are interested in seeing what we did, it's one page of one piece of paper. And so I just Xeroxed my copy. I made no comments, no changes or anything like this, just to let people know that this is what we're doing. The other thing is about the change on the date. My letter of saying welcome to the pack here was dated on October 20th. This commission expires in 6 months. So it is my understanding that it needs to go to council to extend this because it's up in March. Our duties are up in March, and we're not going to be ready by March.
Right, correct. So Fran, we're taking this back to council to extend their seats.
Right.
Is everyone willing to extend?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one correction as far as approval of the minutes. I see there's this guy named Atwell. I don't know who he is. I'd like a correction of the name from Atwell to Atwill. Those Atwells are dreadful people.
That's it.
Atwills are wonderful people.
Well, I think the motion that somebody made to approve the minutes probably included that correction.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Well, what we ought to do then, let's start off with the information from David, and then at our next meeting with the information from Mike Morris. And that will get us a pretty good feel of what types of changes we may be looking at. And then as we develop with the city council and citizenry, if there's we probably can take a path similar to what we did last time. We've been through a lot of these issues for a lot of years. Going from three readings to 2 readings and those types of issues that never do pass if you take them to the citizens. I think what we're really looking to do is bring the charter current to 2021. And so the best way to do that is to start making recommendations that we look at. And then what we've done in the past is once we make we have a meeting like today and we come up with some areas that we want to make changes in, then Dave has Mike Morris put those changes together for us to consider at our next meeting before we start looking at some additional material. So we've got a working document that's going forward basically from the start.
I have a list of how many people voted because we're considering either a May election or a November election. And in January, well, the original charter didn't get, I don't have any tally on that, but the January one in 84 had 120 voters because it stood alone. There weren't anything else going on.
Which year was that, Betsy?
84.
84, 120 voters.
And what month when was the election?
January, well, I don't know when the election was, but it was January 21st, so I suppose it was the May election. The November 3rd election in 87 had 479 voters. May 4th in 91 had 477 voters. May 6th in 95 had 394 voters. May 1st in 1999 had 775. Here's the kicker, November 5th, 2002, November election, 1,143 voters. And then May 12th had 507. So we had 2 November elections apparently, and 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can call a special election, it doesn't have to be mushed with the May. And we did not combine them back in the early years.
And 2002 wouldn't have been a presidential election. All right, it was 2000.
November 5th, 2002, the other month, well.
No,
It was 2000. It was 2000.
Yeah, 2000. So that's a big turnout for a November
really is,
non-presidential
right.
election.
It really is.
There's a lot of city issues going on, city council votes at that time, or those all in May?
Usually May,
Yeah.
but things have changed, so I'd have to go back and look. But
I don't know what that would have been in November of 2002.
Either a hot button issue or people running for state office would have a November election,
yeah,
and county people.
so with that, Betsy, your line of thinking is what? Your preference is May?
No, I don't have a preference because I want to see what we're going to come up with in terms of what we want to change.
Right.
And then if we're all hunky-dory with all the changes, well, that's a different thing. If somebody is opposing a change, they might want an election that doesn't have many people coming out. You can see from this, and if you go back and look at what the issues were, especially on the ones in the 90s when most of us were here, you may see that the public was not interested in certain things. But apparently November 5th brought her out on this. And this was given to me by the city, those many years ago when I was going through the package to just kind of come up to speed and just impress upon all of you all. But this is not just on its own when you just have the amendment issue, because we had one of those. It wasn't the one from 3 to 2 people, because that didn't pass.
Right.
That didn't come out.
Right.
What year was that one?
But when Betty Turner was here.
Yeah, let me see. I actually did a rump. I did not approve that one, and I think I kept that tally in here. Let's see.
It didn't make the election, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Look at this. What are you talking about, archive? 1995, September. Proposition 15 to reduction of required ordinance meetings. It was against 158 for 146. And I don't have a total of how many voted, but yeah. I put power to the people here, so that was it.
Well, I know in all the years, that was has been one of the big issues for
Right.
2 or 3 commissions, was to go from 3 readings to 2 readings on ordinances. It failed miserably all 3 or 4 times, so.
Well, Jim put forth a very good reason why it should fail.
Sure.
So I'm glad it did turn out like that.
Well, it just seems like people need some time to get their act together. The developer has everything together, ready to go forward. And we've lived with that for eons. And even if there is a need for 3 readings, that you can call an emergency meeting anytime. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Do you have some specifics today that you want to talk about? Or
No,
just
sir.
wanted to get
No, we were just using this as just as
organization?
a kickoff.
Can I ask a question? So what you gave us, Betsy, was that a council meeting? Because the meeting date was Monday, November 9th, 2015.
Is it what I just,
Those are
Yes.
the non-substantive changes that Irma did on the formatting.
either Ms. Parker or her helper or whoever was here first at the meeting passed these out as, these were the corrections or changes that the city of Port Aransas decided
The
they
city
thought
did, okay,
needed to be looked at and changed. I mean, spelling correction, the first thing.
sure.
And then every time you do that, you tweak it, you have the renumbering and and then there were taking out section, I'm just making this part
Right.
out, taking out section 5 and putting it really at section 2 because section 1 speaks to section 2,
Sure.
it doesn't speak to 5, that kind of stuff. And then there were some substantive issues. But we grappled over all of this except the easy, renumbering and all that. So this was just like a heads up because it's a tough job to do thoroughly and, but you can see we can breeze through a lot of it too.
We had Carol Woodfin, you remember she came in and she corrected this in syntax and everything. Instead of an and, it should have been an or a comma was left out. And she was good,
She was a college professor.
right?
Well, I started reviewing this the other day and I kept referring to the mayor as he. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. I was like, he kept saying he and him and I was.
Yeah, but I think it's somewhere in there where it
is. And I
says,
found
hey,
out.
Yeah.
I called Mike Morris and I was like, Mike, this document keeps calling the mayor he and him. I said, this is horrible. And he said, Dave, go to the end.
yeah, it
And there's a
delineates
section, there's a gender neutral,
reference that
yeah,
everything is
gender and
shown.
number references. Wherever there's a reference to the male gender, said reference shall automatically include
Right,
the female gender and vice versa. So I guess you don't have to put it in the body of the text, it just,
Section 34, gender and number, whenever in this charter there's a reference to a male gender,
yeah.
the reference shall include the female gender and vice versa. Whether in this charter there's reference in plural numbers, said reference shall include.
Do we have to
singular.
add I think there's more sexes now.
well, that was one thing Mike said you might want to consider is that maybe there's more than just
Him and her,
female, I don't know.
them,
That's something
I mean,
that
who knows?
I'll let the legal trust.
So I have a question, just kind of curiosity. On the charter that was given, it said this one section for page 36, delete section 29, submission of charter to voters in its entirety. Was that something that was discussed or?
Well, it was submitted to the voters back in 1982. The original charter was.
But this is a proposed deletion?
You don't have to submit that again. You submit some amendments to the
To the
voters,
voters?
but you don't
It had
resubmit
never
the
been
charter.
removed, apparently.
Okay,
Once it was submitted, it was never removed.
gotcha.
Okay, there is something that the city provided for me as a new member many years ago from the Texas Municipal League. They pay to be a member of the Texas Municipal League. And they have a wonderful document that is called, it explains how all this whole process works in legalese, but yet dumbed down so that we all can understand that. And I brought a sample of it. But I also would hope that the city could provide us with an updated version, because the version we have is 2010. And not that a lot of stuff has changed that we're gonna need to know, but it just says, how do we get around this, or how do we do this or that? And it's, court tested, court approved, and given to us by the city, so it's not like we're seeking an outside source to sway things the way we want it to go. It's like an instruction manual on how to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll
It's
find
easy to
it.
read.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I think 2010 is the latest that they came out
What's
with.
that?
I think 2010 is the latest that they came out with, but I'll double check.
Okay.
Charlie, for my and Michelle's benefit, how are we going to be proceeding? Does the commission, do y'all take a particular section and request comments on it, or are we supposed to come to the next meeting with ideas or proposals?
Well,
The city-
we don't develop the ideas.
All right,
The ideas are going to be developed out here, and then they're going to present them to us, and then we're going to take those, and if they're justifiable, then we'll put them in a form that either the city council can adopt by ordinance or the voters
All
can
right,
adopt by
all right.
vote.
so it comes from the floor. It
And
comes-
so what we do, the next meeting we have, I would propose that we have Mike come in, Mike Morris,
Yeah,
all right.
city attorney, and go through all he keeps a book on an annual basis as the legislature, every 2 years as the legislature meets,
Mhm.
to see what changes they've made in municipal law, and see if the types of changes that we need to change our charter to be in compliance with.
All right,
So we'll have Mike bring those to us, and then if we accept his recommendations, then we'll ask him to put that in ordinance form, such that, because even if the city council takes it to the voters, they have to pass an ordinance that has what's being recommended in that election.
Mhm.
And so Mike will put it in that format, and we just keep adding to that format until we get to the end.
all right.
Did most of those suggestions that come from you have to be vetted through legal?
yeah, all of them will need to be
Okay.
vetted through legal.
It's my.
Because some of the
Right.
charter components are state-driven that have to be
Right.
in there.
That's,
Others are more homespun, so yeah, everything that we come up with will go through legal.
I'm
Yeah, we
glad
spent a
you're-
lot of time, I believe, didn't we, last time, talking about boards and commissions and
Mhm.
Yeah,
qualifications for boards and commissions, and those are local decisions that we make here, as opposed to decisions on, how you conduct elections, for example, which is a state mandated statutes.
Okay.
I'm glad that Mr. Zahn and our city manager mentioned where the changes are coming from. But I'm under the impression that any citizen and any member of this panel can suggest any changes that they wish to have. Now, if you're not real
That's
smart
true.
about it, of course, it's not going to be up to the lawyer's specifications, or there might be 10,000 reasons why you don't want it and only one person wants it. But I do believe that we have the power to suggest that, and I do believe that a citizen, and please correct me if I'm
No, you're
wrong,
right.
and does have the power to say, hey, listen, I think we should do this, or stop doing this. I like what Charlie said about the groups. We had abolished a beach committee, and now we have it in a different structure. We got rid of the harbor board, we got rid of the police board. The harbor board is back now, the police board is not back, but there is a
Foundation.
foundation helping that. But that's different than the police board that was in our original. So there's boards or commissions that need, because time has changed, to do that. It's possible, but, how many do you need? Do you need them? If you need them, we have the power to say, yes, we'd like to go forward with that. It's always good if a citizen brings it forward, because it's not necessarily a vested interest. Like it may be perceived that we have a reason that we say, oh, we want this board, or we want this change. And we do have the power to make those changes if everybody wants to on here. And
That's true. Nothing for today. Are there any other questions, comments?
I have a comment, one final comment, I think. And it pertains to both Michelle and I on the minutes. There's a motion that they were approved. However, I wasn't here. I failed to abstain. And
I said abstain, but it was already,
so we're thinking that perhaps the minutes should correctly reflect that we should have abstained because, well, again, we have no actual knowledge of what transpired 5 years ago.
I think that-
I'll correct the motion. Yes. We take another vote if we want.
Actually, Mike's weighed in on that before.
Yes.
And what Mike said is that a person that was not at the meeting, but read the minutes and was comfortable with the minutes could vote on the minutes, even though they weren't like a member at the time of the minutes. If that gives you any comfort.
Okay. Just
So
making
if you're
sure.
comfortable with what you approved, then
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
safe to approve them.
All right.
we
That's
have no idea what we approved. Of
fine.
course Of course I read them.
There you go.
Question for you, David.
Yes.
Is it your opinion that you do need to contact council about extending the term of this?
Yes, we're gonna,
What's the
Fran
time
and I will work on getting that extension.
Because it expires in March, and so
Yeah.
if that extension doesn't happen before March, then you have a different delegation.
What's the date? We'll have it in 2 weeks at the February 18th meeting.
Okay, then that's fine, because it's good till, I think, March 15th.
Okay, we'll have it on
I'm not sure about
the
the March
18th agenda.
And
March something.
for clarification, how often will we meet?
We can decide that. We generally, it was
Couple
a
times.
couple of weeks,
Yeah, a couple of
2 or
weeks.
3 weeks between.
And I don't know about y'all, I like 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
I do too. Yeah, that's just good.
That's good.
That's fine.
And the day's good. Is the day good for y'all?
Absolutely.
Wednesday's good for me in the afternoon.
Get out of here in time for happy hour. That's great.
That's important.
Well, why don't we call the next one for the 17th at 3 o'clock then?
Could we push that back 1 week, Charlie, because I'm gonna be out most of that week.
24th?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
What's the date, man?
Well, that's, yeah, I was, the week of on the 17th, I have a hearing, which I know it's going to go. I can't be here on the 24th. I'm going to be in North Carolina.
Let's not do it then.
Maybe moving it up to the 10th be an option.
Well, I think Mike's gonna need a little bit more
Okay.
time. I think this next step is probably the longest time frame I need. So I'd prefer to move it back than up because I think it's gonna take Mike, it could take him 2 to 3 weeks to get this legislative update stuff for us.
March 3rd?
And I know he goes on a ski trip around President's Day.
And it's always on a Wednesday, right?
It could
That's
be
up
any
to
day
you
we want.
guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do a different day.
Yeah, we can do it any day we want.
Is March 3rd too late?
I don't think that's
Too early.
too late. Because if Mike's out a week, that gives him basically 2 working weeks. I think that's about right.
Why don't we do it on March the 3rd then?
I'm good.
It sounds good.
3 o'clock, March
In
3rd.
fact, why don't we put on our calendar right now the 3rd and the 17th both for March, and then we'll look on the 17th of April.
Why are we doing that? I'm sorry.
Just setting 2 meetings, go ahead and put them on your calendar, Jim, so
Oh, I see.
we don't
Yeah,
develop conflicts. It's
very
pretty
good.
helpful.
Okay, sounds good.
Well, Mayor, do you have any words of wisdom for this group?
I have none whatsoever. I will watch what you're doing, though.
No. Okay, well, if there's no other business, then I would entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, everyone.
Second.
2 seconds.
Second.
Thanks for your time and involvement.
David, is it Texas Municipal